The Giants came oh so close to a series sweep of the Tigers that would have moved them just half a game out of a playoff spot. But the good news is the team they're chasing, the Atlanta Braves, are coming into town for what could be a pivotal 4-game series in this wild card race.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at supplyhouse.com. And coming up on today's show, we will get into the Giants winning 2 out of 3 against the Tigers, oh so narrowly missing a 3-game sweep, some disappointment in the finale there. Camilo Doval being optioned to the minors, which was, a possibility, but a surprise nonetheless to me. But first, I want to get into this upcoming series against the Braves, because it just so happens that the Braves are coming into town at a time when they have really hit hard times. They had lost, I think it was 5 or 6 in a row, and then they won a game. They lost at least 2 out of 3. They lost their series in Colorado, and Luke Jackson actually was one of the culprits there in a big blown lead that the Braves had against the Rockies. Yeah, so looking back at their games, they did lose 2 out of 3 in Colorado. They had just been swept at home by the Brewers, including a 10-0 loss, a 16-7 loss. They won their first 2 games in a home series against the Marlins, but then lost the last 2 games, including a 7-0 loss. And then yesterday in Colorado, they had a huge lead going into the bottom of the 8th, and they gave up 7 runs. It was 8-2 going to the bottom of the 7th, going into the bottom of the 8th. And they gave up 7 runs with Luke Jackson, who the Giants just traded over there at the deadline, giving up 4 earned runs on 4 hits in that fateful inning. I keep seeing that they allowed 4 homers in the inning, but that is not factual. I don't know what. 4 homers. The Braves hit 4 homers. Okay, that's what I was seeing. But anyway, so they come into town, and what's the situation with the standings? Well, the Braves are that 3rd wild card team. So this is like set up to be, the Giants couldn't really ask for a better setup in terms of the team that they're chasing directly is coming into town, and that team is in the midst of playing poorly. And so you have a shot. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I think the Braves are a good team, and they're kind of hitting a wall right now, and they could turn it around at any time. They've had a lot of injuries right now. Looking through their lineup, it's not the same as it could be with Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna Jr., Michael Harris II, all on the injured list. On the pitching side, Spencer Strider, Ronaldo Lopez. So yeah, we're spending a lot of time talking about the Braves here, and the Giants do kind of catch an unfortunate break in that they face Chris Sale in Game 1, and they will face Max Fried. I guess in a 4-game series, you're only going to not face one guy, but. And then the Braves do have a couple guys on the injured list. But it's just like, if you go out there and sweep this series or win 3 out of 4, you're going to be in a good situation. And if you go out there and you get swept, you're going to be potentially like pushed out of the playoff picture. So it's pivotal in that sense. If you just split or something, then you might just kind of tread water, but the opportunity is there for the taking. Whereas it is worth pointing out the Giants are tied with the Cardinals 1.5 back, just 1.5 back. It's worth mentioning, like, because the Braves have been slipping, the Mets just got swept in Seattle and the Mets are ahead of the Giants. The Cardinals have been slipping. Giants are just 1.5 games out of a playoff spot, and they're tied with the Cardinals, who are also 1.5 back. And the Mets, having just been swept, outscored like 22-1 in their series in Seattle, have really fallen back here, and they're just a half game behind the Braves, but just 1 game ahead of the Giants. So with a win tonight against the Braves, the Giants would be just half a game back, and they could potentially be tied with the New York Mets, who play Oakland, and Oakland is playing well. They just beat up on the actually, the Mets are off today, so Giants will still be, I guess they would be tied with the Mets with a win, and the Cardinals are at Cincinnati. So anyway, it's just a critical series, and the fact that it's 4 games makes it, even bigger. And so it's 6:45, 6:45, 6:45, and then a day game at 12:45 in the 4th game, followed by a day off, and then the Giants, quote unquote, go to Oakland. It's a road trip. It's a 1-city road trip to Oakland. So this is a long homestand. It started with Detroit, and now you get 4 against the Braves, and then Oakland doesn't really count because you can just stay wherever you normally stay and just travel to Oakland. And then the Giants catch the White Sox, who are the worst team in baseball by far right now, and then another day off. And then they go to Seattle, and then another day off, and then they go to Milwaukee. So I just think that this 4-game series, if it's something like if they split, basically, then the carry on, and then the rest of the series this season, every series is going to be huge the rest of the way for this team. But this series has the potential, if you, like I said, win 3 out of 4 or sweep, to propel you to having a real shot at making it. Whereas if you lose 3 out of 4 or get swept, it really would put them in a bad position. And so, again, you're catching the Braves not playing well, but to me, that doesn't necessarily mean the Braves will continue to not play well. It's worth pointing out they have a positive run differential. It's also worth pointing out the Giants have scored 27 more runs this season than the Atlanta Braves, but the downside is the Giants have allowed a heck of a lot more runs than the Braves have allowed. Braves have allowed 469 runs. The Giants have Braves have played 3 fewer games, by the way. So, but still 27 fewer runs scored. 469 runs allowed for the Braves, 535 runs allowed for the Giants. I continue to make the point that run prevention has been the Giants' problem more so than the offense, even though people focus on the offense more. It's also worth pointing out, kind of lastly, as we look at the playoff picture here, that the Diamondbacks and Padres have really pulled away. They've both just been on torrid stretches. The Padres finally lost a game yesterday, even though it looked like they got a 2-out homer in the 9th that would have tied it by Ha-Sung Kim, but after replay review, it was overturned, and they ended up not scoring the tying run, and they lost. But both of those teams, the Diamondbacks and the Padres, are 4 games ahead of the Braves, and so they're 5.5 up on the Giants. So it's really that third wild card spot that is there for the taking, and that team is coming into town tonight. So we're kind of working our way from looking ahead to looking back. So now I want to get into the fact that the Giants won 2 out of 3 against the Tigers. If you can just keep winning series, it's a formula for success, especially if you can win 4-game series, and especially if that team is the Braves. But we'll look back on the series that was and the missed opportunities of not being able to complete the sweep that would have really been kind of a statement sweep and put a lot of heat on the Braves coming into this series. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, Today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We're going to look back at the Giants series win against the Tigers. A couple of dramatic wins, one frustrating loss, and then the demotion of Camilo Doval, which caught me by surprise. Not totally, but I did on the last episode of Locked on Giants say that I didn't think it was going to happen, that I thought he was definitely one of their 8 best relievers, but they sent him down anyway. And we'll get into the quotes from Bob Melvin about the demotion. Thank you for making Locked on Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked on MLB podcast. Host Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked on MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And so the Giants continued to play well. They're just winning series frequently here. They won 2 out of 3 against the Reds. They won 3 out of 4 against the Nationals. They win 2 out of 3 against the Tigers. You'd obviously like to get some sweeps going. They split a 2-game series prior to that against the A's. They won 4 straight against the Rockies. So that little stretch there was since the All-Star break, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies, lost 3 out of 4 to the Dodgers, and then they got hot, starting with that sweep against the Rockies at home, split against the A's, and then Cincinnati, Washington, Detroit. So this is the series here, because then you get the A's and White Sox. The A's are better than people give them credit for, but the White Sox have been dreadful, and that's a home series, and so nothing is a given in this game, but if you can do well against the Braves, then you're set up to just continue to do well against Oakland and the White Sox, and then see where you're at come the 22nd of August. After that kind of concludes the truly soft portion of the schedule, and then they play a couple of playoff teams in playoff position, and then they play the Marlins at home, which is another team not in playoff position, and then the schedule's pretty tough for the rest of the month of September. So anyway, looking back, the Giants had to take care of business against a not terrible, kind of banged up Tigers team. The Giants are lucky they didn't have to face Tarek Skubal, who's a Cy Young contender in this series, and they took advantage, and it wasn't easy. They, in both of their wins, were no hit pretty deep into the game, especially in the first game, and it was 2-0 Tigers going to the bottom of the 7th, and the Giants got sac flies in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings to win the game. And so that 9th inning sac fly being a walk-off, of course, by Mark Canha in his first game as a Giant in San Francisco, which is the ballpark he grew up coming to as he grew up a Giants fan. And so it was a very cool moment for Canha. It was a start by Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray wasn't particularly sharp, but he's even without his premium command and stuff, he still went 6 innings, allowed just 2 runs earned and unearned, just 2 total runs, 5 hits, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, no homers, which is kind of a key for him. And then Landon Roop pitched 2 innings with 2 strikeouts. That was kind of a big bridge job by Landon Roop. And then Tyler Rogers with a scoreless, clean, easy top of the ninth to get the game to the bottom of the ninth, in which the Giants won on that sac fly. And so, 3 sac flies. It kind of echoes my point that I've made over and over, which is that a lot has been said recently about the Giants' failure to come through in those situations, sac fly situations. And they keep showing on the television broadcast that the Giants have X amount of sac flies, and it's the X most in the league, like 5th most, 3rd most, whatever it is. But that's one of those numbers that doesn't really mean anything to me, because what matters is your success rate, not the raw number of times you've had a sacrifice fly, because you could fail more than the average team and still have an above average number of sac flies if you have more chances. And I think that's true of the Giants, because that's what I'm saying when I say context neutral. They're a good offense. When I say good, I mean they've been an above average offensive team, not by too much, but above average nonetheless. So they have, I think, had more sac fly opportunities than most teams, or at least than the average team. But their success rate, we looked it up the other day, was below average. But my point was, just because you have been below average previously doesn't mean you will be below average in terms of success rate in those situations moving forward. And this game was a perfect example. I think they came through every time. I don't recall, they didn't have a hit until the 7th. And so I don't really feel like they left anybody out there. In fact, they were somehow, they were 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position. That's another thing. You win the game, you don't get a single hit with a runner in scoring position. You score 3 runs. And so that's another thing I talk about, is that runners in scoring position is not everything, because they didn't have any hits. They only had 1 opportunity, and yet they scored 3 times, not a ton, but they won the game. So anyway, the Canna sac fly came in a 2-strike count. I guess they did fail. I think it was bases loaded, nobody out, and Yastrzemski grounded out. And so they did fail in that first chance. But as I said, the league average success rate on runner on third less than 2 out situations is just about 50%. And so half the time, on average, teams are going to fail to score that runner in a particular chance. So Yaz's at bat had a 50-50 chance roughly. And then that was a coin flip that came up on the wrong end for the Giants. But then Canna's at bat, also a quote unquote 50-50 chance. Obviously the skill of the player comes into play, and the strikeout ability, the ground ball likelihood. There's all kinds of factors. Is the infield in? Is it not in? That go into this. But anyway, Canna against Shelby Miller, who was throwing hard, Canna was able to get the job done in a 2-strike count on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. It was center cut, but still, you could easily swing and miss there, but he didn't, and it won the game for the Giants. And let's see, I just want to verify the pitch velocity. I don't know why. I guess it doesn't really matter, and I can't find it anyway, so we're not going to verify. Actually, there it is, 94.7. So I'm totally wrong. It was 95, not 97. Anyway, in game 2, Giants also were getting no hit. I think it was into the 5th, and they ended up scoring 3 runs in the 5th, and that was their only runs of the game, and it was enough. It was Brett Wisely had a big double that scored a couple of runs. Tyler Fitzgerald had a hit and a walk. Elliot Ramos a hit and a walk. Michael Conforto was 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. Yaz had a couple hits. Gerard Encarnacion, who's been a nice story, had a hit. He had another kind of big hit. Giants in this game, though, 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position. Once again, indicating that you can win games even if you don't do well in that situation. But you obviously have to pitch well, too, if you're going to only score 3 runs. which is what I've said all year. Like, they've lost a lot of games when they've scored like 4, even 5 runs. And they could have easily, I mean, they would have lost these first 2 games if they just didn't pitch well, but they pitched well. Robbie Ray, Landon Roop, and Tyler Rogers in game 1, and then Logan Webb just doing Logan Webb things. He had a bit of a rough stretch there, but now he seems to be back on track fully. 7 strong, 7 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, 4 hits, no homers. Just a classic Logan Webb start. Tyler Rogers with a scoreless 8th, and Ryan Walker, the new closer, who I've been saying for roughly a month that I think he should be closing games, admitted to some pretty serious nerves in his first real opportunity as quote unquote the closer. He had closed out a game earlier this season, but it's different when you're filling in for somebody, and he did look a little bit off, but nonetheless, he ended up, allowing a hit and a walk, but striking out 2 and allowing no runs to lower his ERA on the season to 2.20. So just a clean game for the Giants, especially, on the pitching front. Was not so clean defensively in game 1. Kurt Casale made 3 errors. It was like the first time since the 1930s, 1937, that a Giants catcher had 3 errors in a game, 2 throwing errors and a catcher's interference. So anyway, 2 big wins there, and then a chance to sweep in the finale. So we will get into this finale letdown where the Giants had a real chance, and this was where that situational hitting and uncommonly base running mistakes proved costly in the Giants' efforts to sweep, which would have made them just a half back of the Braves. But they weren't able to get it done despite a real opportunity late. And also we'll get into the demotion to the minor leagues of Camilo Doval. Pretty shocking stuff. So all of that coming up in just a minute. And before we get into it, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Ibotta. It's summertime, which means it's barbecue season. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. So you won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by FanDuel. I love sports, obviously. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, certainly in the other sports, and we just have fewer games than we had at a certain point. And the sports aren't quite sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. I'm going over to FanDuel.com as we speak, and I want to see, are the Giants favored in this game? It's a home game, but the Braves are a good team, arguably a better team than the Giants, even though they're really scuffling. And it's close. It's close with the Giants at minus 116 on the money line, the Braves at minus 102. Blake Snell, by the way, versus Chris Sale. What a matchup. The over-under set at just 6.5 runs. Pretty low, but that's has a lot to do with the great left-handed pitching matchup. So again, FanDuel.com, and make the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the Giants' missing opportunities in the finale and demoting Camilo Doval to Triple-A and what the manager had to say about it. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers, tomorrow we're going to be breaking down this great pitching matchup with Chris Sale against Blake Snell. When both are on, they're two of the tougher left-handed pitchers in the game. It's been a very resurgent season for Chris Sale, despite his age. He's 35, I want to say, at least, and yet he's looking like a Cy Young frontrunner type guy. Yeah, 35 years old. Will be 36 in March. But yeah, 2.75 ERA, 2.65 expected ERA, 2.25 fielding independent pitching, striking out about a third of batters faced. So he dominated the Giants last time he faced them, and he's basically dominated the league, it seems, all season long. So, but Blake Snell has been dominating teams as well, so it has the potential to be a great pitching matchup. But in the finale against the Tigers, Giants lose 5-4 despite falling behind 5-1. So another, valiant comeback effort. They fell behind 1-0 in the first. Hayden Birdsong gave up a homer to the leadoff batter of the game, and he also gave up another homer. I think it was in the fifth inning. That was kind of a backbreaker. It seemed to make it 5-2 Tigers, but the Giants got 2 in the sixth. Felt like they had an opportunity for more there, and then in the eighth inning, the Giants got a leadoff triple from Matt Chapman. And so anytime you get a leadoff triple, so it was bases loaded. In the seventh inning, they squandered a chance with Bailey grounding into a double play, but then they did get a nice 2-out run-scoring hit by Encarnacion, who hit a rocket to right field. But then, and then Casey Schmidt hit a rocket to third base that easily could have got past Gio Urshela and tied the game with the tying run on second. It would have definitely tied the game. But it's that eighth inning leadoff triple that in the eighth. Eighth inning leadoff triple in the eighth. Duh. So a leadoff triple by Matt Chapman in the eighth, down by a run. And so that's just, I'm sorry, but if you want to go to the playoffs, like down a run against the Tigers, eighth inning, bottom of the eighth, like if you go ahead, you can just win the game in the top of the ninth. You just have to find a way to score that guy. So Mark Canha comes up first and grounds into a fielder's choice. So what I didn't like here was Matt Chapman breaking for home with the infield in and no outs. I don't understand that, because you've still got, if you just stay at third base, if you're Chapman, who's, by the way, been great like as of late and has been a very good base runner on top of everything else he does well. So I don't want to bury the guy for this, but I don't understand breaking for the plate with the infield in on a ground ball that was essentially right to the shortstop, who has a good arm, Javier Baez. So Chapman was easily out. Canha did get to second as Chapman stayed in a rundown long enough to let Canha get to second. So that was big. But if you just stay put, first of all, you could safety squeeze there. You could safety squeeze with Patrick Bailey up next if you just stay put at third. So I just feel like breaking for home was totally the wrong decision by Chapman in that situation. And so then it was Canha on second, and they made another bad decision base running wise, where Canha broke for third on a ball hit to the pitcher. He thought it was obviously going to go past the pitcher, but from second base, he breaks for third. So it's like every at bat, the Giants lost a base. Like started out runner on third, no outs. Then it's runner on second, 1 out. And then it's runner on first, 2 outs. Like they just went backwards on the bases, which is just kind of inexcusable. So it was a really bad base running inning. And then Gerard Encarnacion grounded out to third to end the inning. And that basically took all the air out of the building. And in the bottom of the ninth, the Giants couldn't get anything going outside of a 2-out walk by Lamont Wade Jr., and they lost. So I think, Chapman breaking for home, a rare mental mistake by him. He just thought maybe it was hit slow enough that he could beat the throw, but it was not, and he was out by a lot, but did get in a rundown, like I said. Anyway, Doval option to the minors. So this had been brought up. People on Twitter, I was like saying, I think it's crazy to even mention it, kind of, because I said he's easily one of their 8 best relievers. I think, you could have optioned Randy Rodriguez and kept Camilo Doval and just used him in lower leverage situations. But I think they wanted him to, well, let's just hear what Bob Melvin had to say. He said, quote, "He's an all-star. We expect him to come back and be an all-star. But the strike throwing is an issue right now. Times to the plate. That's a big thing that, yeah, like his quickness to the plate and basically allowing runners to run freely too often." Melvin continued, "He can be better than he is right now, and I think he'll be better served to be able to work on it somewhere where it's not at the big league level in a different role." So apparently Melvin called Doval into his office on Friday to deliver the news and said that Doval was understandably disappointed to learn he'd be heading back to the minors for the first time since September 2021, so almost 3 years ago. Melvin said he was sad. "I don't blame him. It's going to take a while to process too. If you're a guy like him, you don't expect to hear that. He's processing it right now. Hopefully he takes it the right way and gets back here and does the role that he's done in the past very successfully." So Melvin said he hopes Doval will be back after just the requisite 15 days are up in the minors. But for now, the Giants will lean on Ryan Walker. And of Walker, Melvin said, "Walk certainly deserves it. He's been really good. We don't want to get Tyler out of the 8th. He's been so good in the 8th, too. Our bullpen has been really good at times at the back end. You don't want to throw it into flux, and everybody's in different roles. The hard part is that Walker has been that fireman who comes in with guys on base all the time and a lot of times pitches out of a jam, and then the next inning as well. He gets lefties, but he gets lefties out. He gets righties out. He's got swing and miss stuff." So I agree. Like you don't like losing Walker to that role, but also he's the best option easily for me for them in the 9th. And again, he converted on his first opportunity, even though he said he was quite nervous. So he'll calm down, I would imagine, and I think he can definitely do the job if he just keeps pitching like he's pitched all basically since he's made it to the major leagues. Ryan Walker has just been a stud and has just emerged as a very, very good reliever. And strike throwing has not been an issue for him. He's got a walk rate of just 5.9%. Doval was up closer to 15%. So yeah, Ryan Walker is your closer for now, and Doval is in Triple-A. I don't think he's pitched there yet, but maybe they'll give him a few days to kind of settle down and then work on throwing strikes and being quicker to the plate. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like the show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.